Hello everybody, it's Taylor Sisson again. Welcome to part 2 of the tutorial series on using Arena Simulation by Rockwell Software. Okay, in this video I'm going to go over a couple things that I was supposed to go over in the last video. Things like the draw toolbar, as well as some simple animations. Then I'm going to introduce you to two new modules from the basic process, and those are the Decide module and the Record module, and I'll show you how those are useful. So first, let's open up our model from last time, and what we're going to start with is doing simple animation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to place a machine picture right here, and rather than having the entity flow through here and then seemingly disappear into the box while it's being worked on, we're going to have a picture of a machine up here, and the entity picture is actually going to move onto it and appear like it's being worked on. So this will enhance your model and your overall simulation. But bear in mind, this is very simple, and you can go much more in depth with this program. You can even do 3D like representation of your simulation, but I haven't used that, and from what I've seen, it doesn't look overly advanced. So personally, I'm not very interested in it. I would start with a different program for doing 3D animation of your model. Okay, so let's get started. What you want to do is go to your animation toolbar here and click on Resource. Now we've got to tell the program which resource we're going to animate. So go to Identifier and go to Machine. That's our only resource that we have right now. And notice here we've got 4 different states. Now you can go ahead and delete the inactive and failed state because we won't have these in our model. We may in later models, but for now we don't need those. So click them, make sure they're indented, and then hit delete. Now all we've got is idle and busy. So it's like I described earlier. You've basically got an on and off. Now right now all we've got is a white box and a green box. So if I were to place this on the flowchart right now, basically there will be a white box there, and once an entity moved into the machine, it would just turn green. And that's it. That's not necessarily going to help us very much. So what we want to do is we want to put a picture of the actual machine. So to do that, we are going to load up a new picture library. So if you're in your software, you might notice that right here you'll see the default picture library, which has the different colored balls and different people and such. I've got the machine's picture library loaded up. So I'm going to show you now how to load that up. What you do is hit Open, and then you need to navigate to where the picture libraries are located from when you installed Arena. By default, you go to your computer and then go to your main drive, go to Users, and then rather than going to your name, go to Public. Then go to Public Documents, and you'll see Rockwell Software. Navigate through here until you get to Picture Libraries. And you'll see you've got a lot of different ones that you can play around with. They've got quite a few different pictures. They're really simple pictures, but they do get the job done most of the time. And especially like for preliminary purposes, you can just use these simple pictures. But you can create your own libraries with the new button here, and you can also import your own pictures. Okay, so for this tutorial, we want to bring in the machine's picture library, and then hit Open. I'm just going to hit Cancel because I already have it loaded. Alright, now make sure that the idle is indented, so we have it selected, and then scroll down until you see this two-dimensional picture of this machine here with the red base. Now the one that's empty right here, that's the one we want for idle. So it's showing that the machine is just sitting there. So what you do is indent idle and indent this picture that you want. So make sure they're both selected, and then hit the left arrow here. And notice it moves it into the idle. Next, you want to define how it's going to look when it's busy. Now we've got one here. This one has a man actually working under it, but we're going to use the one where it's just the machine working. It's got little sparks flying off of it. It's really small, so it may be hard to see, but we're going to put that in for busy. Now, one more thing we need to do before we close this window is hit Seize Area. And what that's going to do is it's going to add a little area to the picture that is basically a seize area. So when the resource becomes seized, the entity will actually move to the seize area. So we can make it appear like the machine is actually working on the part. So hit OK. And notice your cursor turns into a crosshair. And basically what you need to do is you need to click. And that's going to create your machine here. So it's a little small, so let's make it bigger. Just drag the corner here, and you can make it larger. That looks plenty large enough. Now zooming in, you notice we've got our seize area here. If you try to click on it now, it just tries to select this, so deselect that. Come in here, make sure you hover over it and it says seize area, and then you can choose the seize area. Now notice that it's not quite in the middle of like the work area here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off grid snapping so I can put it exactly where I want it. So what I do is hit this button up here to do that, and that will turn off the grid snapping. And next we're just going to take and drag the seize area exactly where we want it. Okay, so now it's right under the little drill there, and that's exactly where we want it. Now let's turn back on Snap to Grid, and now we can zoom out. Okay, let's take a look at how the system runs now. So I think from last time it was running pretty fast, so go to Run and Setup, and go to Run Speed, and let's add one more 0 here. And let's change this one to a 5. I think that gives us a pretty good speed. And now let's hit Run. Okay, and notice once an entity is being worked on, it actually moves into the machine here. And it looks like it's being drilled. Now, in this simulation, the machine's pretty much always busy. But if we watch for a minute, we might catch it not. Yeah, there we go. See, it turns off when it's not busy. So that's a nice little simple animation. You know, it doesn't actually have the sparks flying or anything, but it gives you the idea of what's happening. Okay, let's stop this. Next, I'm going to introduce you to the draw tools. And basically what these are for is just for looks, essentially. Drawing on your model doesn't do anything for the logic. It's basically just if you're going to print it out, or if somebody's going to come and look at your model later, or even if you're coming back yourself to look at it. So we've got a few different things we can do. We can draw an ellipse, a polygon, a box, and some different types of curves and such. Let's start with a box. What you can do with the box is you can make a nice title area. Okay, and now to use this tool, what you do is you just click once and then move your cursor. You don't have to click and drag. And then once you get the box where you like it, click again. Let me get this nice, ugly, brownish color. So what we want to do is we want to change that color. So go to Fill Color, pull that down. Let's change it to this nice orange color. And now if you want to make it look really nice, you may want to add a shadow behind it, a lot like you do in Word or PowerPoint all the time. But you can't actually add any properties to this box like you can in those softwares. Essentially what you have to do is create another box that's offset from it a little bit, like so. And then we're going to take and turn the fill color to black. And notice it's in front of it. We don't want that, so we're going to go to the Arrange bar up here, and we're going to send it to the back. And then deselect it by clicking elsewhere. And notice now we've got a box with what looks like a shadow behind it. Now, it's pretty offset, So if you want the shadow to be a little closer, you can easily do that. You can take and select this and then turn off snap to grid and place it pretty easily. But you may want it to be perfectly aligned. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. You can go to Tools, go to View, and then Grid and Snap Settings. Right now my snap spacing is set to 50, my grid spacing is set to 100. Basically what that means is between each of these dots there's 100 units. Now as far as where everything snaps to the grid, this is the setting for that. It's 50 units. So you'll notice if I move this right here, it snaps in between the little dots. That's because it's set to 50%. So if you want to change it to have a better precision, let's change it to 5. And notice now when we move it, it moves at a lot smaller intervals. But it will be easier to make this side and this side the same distance away from the edge. And there you have your shadow. Now it's barely even noticeable there, so let's move it out a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So let's go back to View, and let's put our snap settings back to 50. That's where I like them. You can experiment and find what's best for you. You can set that up however you like. And now let's put a title in here. So to do that, we're going to go to Text, and a text string box comes up. Now we can type in any text we like. So let's type in example machine model. Now if you want to change the style of font, go to Font here, and you can make it look however you like. Now I'm going to use my really cool Razor font here. And you can change the size, but we'll change the size actually out in the view area. Hit OK, and then you've got the crosshair again. So click where you want to place it, and there you have it. And now I've got this ugly teal. I don't like that. So while it's still selected, let's change the color of the font by clicking the font color or the text color button here. Let's change it to a nice, let's go with, yeah, that looks pretty good, this reddish color. And there you have it. You've got a nice little title. Now, this can come in handy with keeping your model organized too. For instance, if this is part of a larger model, let's say you've got modules out here and different logics, you may want to take and section off each part of your model. So what we can do is take and edit this text, and let's call this machine area. Okay? And to section off the machine area, let's create another box. So let's zoom out just a little bit, and let's highlight the entire area. Okay, and you'll get this black box here from where we did our shadow earlier, which looks terrible, of course. Let's send it to back first, and that'll put everything on top. And let's change the color. Let's go with like a teal. There we go. Now you've got your area sectioned off. This will help keep you organized later on. So that's pretty much how the draw tools are useful. So let's delete this box because we're actually about to expand our model. Alright, now I'm going to briefly introduce you to the Decide module and the Record module. So, I think I talked about this in the last video. You may have a situation where the machine works on parts, and to model what's happening in the real world, you want some of those parts to be insufficient. So basically, what we're going to do is put in a little QA area, a quality assurance area. To do this, let's select this connector and hit the delete button on the keyboard. And let's move this over so we got a little bit of room. The Decide module is pretty big, so let's make sure we have plenty of room. And let's place the decide module out here. And now I'm trying to line it up as best I can, but I'm not too worried about it, as we're mainly worried about the logic. Alright, so let's take and connect the out from the process module to the in for the decide module. Now if you're being attentive, you'll notice that there are two outs on the decide module. One is true, one is false. So double clicking on it, we're going to open up this dialog here, and we can take and name it. So let's call it decide if part is good, because we want the parts that are coming out of the true side to be good. So it's basically you're saying decide if part's good. If it's true, go out this way. Really, this doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it whatever you want, but that just helps you keep things straight. Right now we're set to two-way by chance. Basically what this says is there's a certain percent chance that you'll come out of this end, and there's a certain percent chance you'll come out of this end. So here is the percent that's going to be true. Let's set it to 92. So 92% of the parts that go through this machine are going to be good parts. And you don't have to type in the other 8 because Arena obviously knows that 100% is the max, and it simply takes and subtracts this to make the other 8% for false. So click OK, and you're set to go. So what we'll do is we're going to pull out our connect tool, and we're going to go from true to exit system. So if a part goes through and it's good, then you just ship it off. But what do you do if a part's bad? There's a few different things you can do. You can always send it to a different process, or you can dispose of it, or you can even come back and have it reworked. That's what we're going to do. So let's take our connect tool and let's connect these two together. And see, this gives me a chance to point out something else. Notice that this line just sort of overlapped and went straight to here. That looks really ugly. Let's delete that. Go here to Object and go to Smart Connect. Now try to connect those once again. Now notice that it's made a few little nodes and it's kept things nice and organized for you. So we'll keep that on for now. And that's the simplest way to keep everything organized. Okay, so how our machine is set up right now, or rather our model, is a part will come in, it will go into the machine and be worked on. It will then go here and be checked to see if it's good. If it's good, they send it out of the system to go to the customer. If it's bad, they send it back to the machine where it goes back into the queue, just like any other part, and is reworked again. Then it's checked again. So technically, although it's highly, highly unlikely, a part could just go in a loop here if it keeps finding itself bad. But that's okay. That's probably not going to happen. And it's okay for our simple model here. So let's give the system a run. And if you'll watch here, you had 3 come out so far. Okay, there went one. That one was bad. So it had to go back to the machine. And there was another one that was bad. And so it goes back to the machine. So that's how that logic works. So now I'm going to show you how to use the record module. It's pretty simple. Let's take this path here and let's delete it. Let's also take this counter right here and let's delete it. And I'll show you why in just a second. Now take a record module, drag it out onto the work area like so. Let's see, let's put it over here because this is the in, this is the out, and we've got to come around here. Go from the false out here to the in on the record, Then go from the out on the record to the in on the machine works on part. Now you get a little crisscross here, but it doesn't look too bad. Double click on the record module and let's give it a name. We're going to call it count bad parts. Okay? The type is going to be count. So basically what this is going to do is each entity that goes through here is going to count it. The value is 1. That's how much it adds to the counter each time. Then you need a counter name. Let's just call it bad parts. By default, it takes the name of the module and puts it down here. But let's take the count out. Hit OK, and it updates. Alright, let's save our model. I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to call it Example 2. Okay, now let's run our model. And now we've got it at a speed where we can watch it, but let's speed it up so it'll end faster. Alright, the simulation is run to completion, so let's click Yes to view the results. Okay, we went over results in the last video, but notice now we've got a user specified result. If you click on it, you'll notice that we have a counter called bad parts, and it tells me how many went through that record module that we put in our model. So this can be used in a number of ways, but that's just a simple overview of how it works. So I think that's all for this tutorial. In the next one we'll move on and we'll learn about some more basic process modules, such as the assign module and how it can be used. And then we may even move into the advanced process area where there's more modules that we can use and we can put greater detail into our model. I'll also move into more complicated animation, but I'll probably get into that as we actually get into more complicated models, as you can't really do complicated animation if your logic is simple. Okay guys, I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe and check back for more later. Thank you.